Hello and welcome back to RP-0 America. So, as it took me about 2 to 3 minutes to get this docked after I finished the last video. I just turned on Radiohead and everything just slipped into its right place. So, as you can see, I've also got this stick here. I've got the docking indicator. In hindsight, maybe if I didn't have that out, it would have actually docked a bit easier. That might have actually been causing me some trouble. But anyway, it docked very nicely. I just, a lot of the difficulty was just because I don't have the RCS well balanced on this, and I will make sure to resolve that for the future. Oh nice, we're flying right over Florida now. So we've completed that mission, as you can see here. Got some nice cash for first docking. So there's some other interesting stuff we can do now that we've completed that. I should probably name this window so it doesn't, let's see, final docking. Just in case I want to use it again in the future. Those numbers can be useful. All right, and can probably close this one right now as well. All right, so what missions do we have? So there's the, I've heard of a bug with a specific mission. I just want to check on it. Yeah, so note that now it's saying time to, so crude duration record of 7 days. So notice it looks like it reset a few minutes ago. And that's because it is now considering this an entirely new craft. So any time that my crew had spent in space, like about 5 days before this point, is no longer counted. So I'll have to spend 7 fresh days in space in order for this to count. So fair enough. So I will also, during this time that I'm docked now, I've still got plenty of life support supplies. I'm pretty sure I can do the, do a full fresh week again, and if not, I might cheat a little more life support supplies because in practice I was at 5 days, as you can see here. 6 days now. So just 1 day short of that. And I don't know if that's something that can be fixed in the contract or not, but regardless, it's a good heads up. I just wanted to check if that bug still existed because for me right now it's not fatal, but anybody watching should note that that issue still exists. If you want to do those two missions at the same time, you should dock right away, then do the duration, or do the duration before you even attempt to dock. All right, so part of the reason that the Gemini missions, it wasn't one of the major objectives, but I think Pete Conrad really wanted to do this, and I'm sure a number of the other astronauts wanted as well. But part of the reason to dock with an Agena target vehicle is got juice. It is still a useful vehicle. So let's turn off this RCS, as we'll need that to return, and let's tell it to control from here, just to set the orientation, because we're going to be lighting this engine. So if I activate it, it tells me how much delta V we have, which is huge. This was real historical, like a Titan II and an Atlas Agena, and as a result, we've got these coupled with not enough delta V to go to the moon, but almost enough to go to the moon, which is impressive. So using a larger transfer vehicle, you could actually, not too much larger of a transfer vehicle, like say a larger launcher, so that there's more fuel in the Agena when they got to orbit, or like say a Centaur target vehicle, as an example, as an interesting theoretical. You could very easily take the existing Gemini craft and send it on a free return flyby of the moon. So I really like on-orbit construction, so that's something I'm strongly considering doing, because I just find that really cool. With the existing rockets at this time, with just Atlas, Atlas Agenas, Atlas Centaurs, early Titan IIs, you could send people on a flyby of the moon, which is a huge space first, a very huge space first. There is some risk to it, and I can talk about that when I actually intend to carry out that mission. But anyway, let us use what fuel we do have in this. So what is our current orbit? So this is our low point, which is nice. So it's 220 kilometers up. So we're going to, I'm going to do a burn around here. And that's because this is currently the daytime lit side of the Earth. And so if we do a burn to put ourselves into a higher orbit, from here, that's going to put this point, the apoapsis, much higher, but leave this point the same. And so that's low enough still that the Gemini can just use its own engines to get a return to the surface. So yeah, we'll do a burn right here. Actually, this is pretty much right in the daytime lit side of the Earth. So let's do it. So let's point this puppy prograde. Maybe I've had the RCS on mild. Oof, I prefer it not use this fuel. There we go. And now it's going to swing by my ideal location. Actually, I may as well just kind Can I just light up the engine? There we go. All right, and just use that to point myself prograde. Looks good. Awesome. Feels good. It's been a long time since I did a docking like that. I don't know, I just find them to be really, really enjoyable, really interesting, tricksy processes. So this was actually carried out on some later Gemini missions, where they docked the Gemini and Agena, and they also made use of some of the remaining fuel in the Agena to inject them into the highest orbit ever. They were the people highest above the Earth. I don't believe that was on Gemini 8. It was on like the last or second last, one of the late Gemini missions. But they put themselves into a much higher orbit. Just to kind of demonstrate the final logical result of this, where you dock with another spacecraft effectively that still has plenty of fuel and ready to go, and use it to inject you into a higher orbit. So we're going to set some records here. We've got other ignition, so I'm just going to turn that off briefly. Interestingly, we were kind of high enough that our orbital velocity is it's weird, but the higher you are, the slower you go, because you're further away from the Earth. More of your energy ends up in the kind of gravitational potential. But anyway, so let's see what other firsts we might be able to get. So a speed record of 9,000. We won't quite go. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking of the numbers wrong. Usually it's 7,600 in orbit. So of course, yes, this is much higher. So we still have the delta V. We could actually push this up over 9,000. I wonder if that's intentional. We will definitely get this one. We're going to go over 500 kilometers. So yeah, I'm going to spend a bit more delta V right now to get us to over 9,000 meters per second. And then we'll get this record as well, which is awesome. I don't know if there's much money that comes with these. These are just kind of world firsts. But there's no reason not to do it if we have the capacity, if there's no real risk to it. And there isn't. We still have enough. We still have plenty of fuel in here. A good amount of fuel. Ooh, the engine failed. All right, well, fair enough. And we didn't quite get to 9,000 meters per second. I don't think we're going to hit that on the swing down either, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, all the ignitions get consumed when the engine fails. So fair enough. We hit the. Not sure what we hit. I guess I'd have to have looked at it earlier, but. Engine shutdown. It doesn't tell. It'd be kind of nice if it kept a storage and told you how long it had burned for, so you could compare that to the burn time. But just judging by the time where it says the mean time between failure, that was just kind of a fluke failure. Because if we were over the rated burn time, or over it substantially, this number would have gone really low. It just becomes much less likely that you're going to survive for a longer amount of time once you're over the rated burn time. So oh well. So it looks like we won't be able to do the 9,000. And also, it's worth noting that means we can't use the delta V that remains in this stage. We can't use this. So we just have the RCS remaining in here, which is still substantial, and the engines that remain here in order to bring us back down. So fair enough. Let us. So it's kind of a tricky choice because we do want to come down on the day lit side, which is kind of what we just set up. But it would also be more interesting, more cool to see the sunlit side of the Earth. Basically because we're choosing which. So right now, it looks like we're going to be very high over the nighttime side of the planet. So fair enough. Let us just let this wander. At high warp, really everything looks like it's unstable, right? There's all kinds of things, all kinds of opportunities this gives you, where you can dock with another craft in orbit. You can build space stations and visit space stations. You can assemble craft in orbit, like one of the early plans, von Braun plans for a crewed mission to the moon was to launch many smaller rockets, like let's say Titan IIs, something, and then gradually assemble enough of a spacecraft in Earth orbit that is able to visit the moon. So let me just slow this down. I'm pretty sure the way that YouTube compression works, just check the light here, is that when stuff is, well, just the way any video compression works, the more things are moving, the lower the video quality compression is. So I just want to make this a relatively static image so you can get a nice view of the crescent Earth from this high up, because we are very, nice, I actually accidentally stopped very close to our apoapsis. So excellent. So we have set a new altitude record of well over 500 kilometers. Let me see now. Well, I wonder what else, what's the next? It doesn't look like it, it did already populate. Nice. So it hasn't given us anything above 1,000 kilometers, but That's we've done a number of awesome firsts already in this mission, and we are set. We should still be able to do the 7 days in orbit. So let me see. I don't want to just leave the craft for the reason that we may run out of life support supplies while I'm away. I'm just going to see what warp speed. Right, that compresses terribly and makes me dizzy. So let me just select the Earth and then go to higher warp and watch these life support supplies dwindle. Actually, I can, pretty sure I can pull that up here too. Tackless information, so it'll tell us how much life support supplies. It's not exact, like for instance, some things like oxygen are being recovered. Electricity is just clearly wrong, just because of the way that RP-0 and Realism Overhaul consumes electricity for life support devices. But we've got 7 days of food left. We've got oxygen. Let me see. Lithium hydroxide is what's recycling our oxygen. Removing, or rather, sorry, that's just removing carbon dioxide. Liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen are both providing our electricity, and also the liquid oxygen is becoming breathing gas for us. Alright, so let us go up to a higher warp, and it looks like we have enough life support supplies, so I'm just going to keep an eye on this number here, maybe check life support supplies occasionally, but should just sit at whatever warp we're at here, 10,000. Jeez, alright. Fair enough, I suppose if I want an entire week to pass in a very short period of time. But the Earth rotates under us many, many times during that, and the view of the Terminator from up here, the line between the daytime and the nighttime sides of the Earth will move very gradually as the Earth is going around the sun. So in a week it goes 1/52th around the sun. So if we had stayed at the exact same position, that may have been a visible change. So all right, just a little more than 2 days, and then we will re-enter. This will also be, because the apoapsis is the highest ever of any mission, crewed mission we've gone through. Oh, what did I do? Food and water. Oh, nice. It's just warning me that we're down to 10%. Okay, cool. And we just have the 9 hours remaining, but in terms of life support supplies, we're good. But we wouldn't be good for much longer. The Gemini was made to kind of proof that people could spend 2 weeks in space, and they were able to send up enough life support supplies and equipment to keep people alive for 2 weeks in space, and that was it. To get duration missions longer than that, Apollo might have done some missions just a little longer than that. I'm not sure, but if so, it was just kind of, I don't know, for proof. They didn't really need to do it and to go to the moon or anything. But then space station missions like the Skylab, wait time is over, check. And then the next record would be 40 days, which technically we pretty much did here. But I'm not going to bother. So here we are. So we want to wait until we're at about Apo, and then I will take a look at. For some reason, it's not letting me click on my orbit, which is a little weird. I'm pretty sure we still have control of the craft. Yeah, I can turn on RCS. Okay. Well, maybe I can kind of just. I'm not sure why that's glitched, but let me see if I can set up a maneuver node. Maneuver node, oh, that's maneuver planner. See, I should be able to trigger something that will create one. So what if I go change periapsis, new periapsis 100, sure. Like that will create a node, right? Oh, weird, it's, okay, so it's visible there. So now I should be able to, I can see a node, but I can't adjust it. It looks like maybe something crashed about my node. Anyway, I'll use MechJeb to edit maneuver node editor. Good, all the information shows up in here. So I want to lower the periapsis more than that. Also, I kind of want to estimate so I don't come down on land, so maybe I'll do another orbit, or I'll kind of think about how much the Earth is going to move in that time. So I want to wait until I'm out there, so 40 minutes. Okay, and so this is our low point. If we do a burn, this is going to come in. Yeah, I should wait another orbit, I think. So I still have enough life support supplies, yeah, for another orbit. So we're going to wait. Can I push this? Snap. Oh, neat. Where did I slow down? Sorry, I was hitting the time warp buttons while my mouse was over a window here, so it didn't take my command. Shift time 1 orbit, right? Pretty sure that's what that means. Plus 1 orbit. Good. So now we're approaching that again, and the Earth has rotated. So this will be a good time to come down. So I will also want to, let's see, make the burn a bit more intense. It'll require a bit of fine-tuning, because like the basic setup of the Gemini is to, weird. Oh, I'm just not, Whatever. I don't know, it's for just some reason the maneuver node isn't showing. So how about I try, okay, let me just save. Maybe it's I'm low on memory or something weird like that. And I will go to visit a different craft. Why not? I could just go to the surface, say, and then come back to the craft. But let's just click on something here. That will take us to another craft. And then we will be able to move back to that other craft. Just close you. Little poof of smoke. Yeah, there's a lot of mods I need to update, so hopefully I'll have a lot more mods updated before my next string of videos. Okay, so back to, okay, let me look at this orbit. Okay, yeah, this is the one I want. Switch to Gemini 5. Or Gemini V. I don't know, I never really feel like there's a big difference between 5 and V. You know, Roman numeral, Latin numeral, you know, it doesn't really matter to me. I just think of them as the same. Although technically, judging by the wiki page, maybe I should have just called it Gemini 5 instead of V, but whatever. Okay, so we are still docked. We've still got access to that. Oh good, and the maneuver node has actually appeared, which is handy. And it looks like it shows us that we are crashing into the ocean with that amount, which is nice. So the Gemini can lift. It can produce a lifting re-entry, so we should be fine for re-entry like this. So first I'm going to, whoa, right, it's trying to hold me prograde, but that wasn't prograde. Oh, this is strong RCS. I guess it just doesn't seem as strong because it has to heft this along as well. Okay, so, oh no, yeah, I want to burn retrograde, obviously, to slow myself down. Yeah, it's going to probably overcorrect and swing just because the RCS force is not strongly in proportion to retrograde, come on, retrograde, to the mass of this craft. Just kind of takes a long time for it to pulse to start swinging it, then it'll also take a long time to pulse to stop swinging it. So this is bringing down our orbit only a little bit though, so maybe I should just use the engine in this. Maybe I'll just ditch this. But it would also be nice to kind of force the Gemini or the Agena to come down as well. But I don't know if I'm gonna, yeah, probably won't here. If I go to time warp, this is probably just gonna swing around, and not as bad as I thought it would. So I can use that RCS to bring me down. It's just nice to like use a separate stage or a separate craft to do something like this, just because no matter how much I mess around with the Agena stage right now, it doesn't affect my crew at all. You know, like they've still got all their power, all their life support supplies, all the fuel, RCS, etc. that they had before. No matter what I do with this is just kind of extra fuel, extra stuff I can do whatever I want with. So normally I go with historical craft or kind of craft designed with tight margins. So when you dock with something else, you just have this all. This is just fun DV, fun delta V. Okay, and it's taking a while to come down, so I may as well just use the main engine instead. All right. Oh, weird. Okay, so now I'm going to ditch this. So I'm going to control from here, and undock. Disable cross feed, open hatch, no. There should be no hatch there. That seems oh, Gemini adapter. Yeah, there shouldn't be a hatch there. The crew can't come out the top. There's a bunch of recovery equipment, RCS, parachutes, etc. Docking equipment, so undock. So we should just be able to ditch that now, and then turn, there we go, turn these back on, and push ourselves away. All right. And now position myself retrograde. So this will technically stay up for a while. If I estimate, so being this high during the apoapsis part of the orbit, it's just not going to have much of an effect. There's just really very, very, very little air up here compared to down there. So that would probably stay up for like a year or maybe even more, because that periapsis is relatively low. Like say a 300 by 300 orbit, as I said in a previous video, stayed up for about a year and a half or so, but it's dipping pretty low on the periapsis, and so that would result in it re-entering, earlier than if it was a round orbit like that. As a round orbit like that, it might stay up almost perpetually for many, many, many years. So if nothing stays up perpetually, it gets kind of perturbed. Okay, we are really high. I didn't look before this about what the altitude of the Van Allen belts are, but we are very high. We might be nearish them for all I know. So I'm using fuel in here just because I'm not fully confident that the solids in here are going to be enough to deorbit it from this altitude. And so I'm going to bring it down to, let's bring it down to, let's say, 100. 100 or so, and then use the solids to finish it off. Because in practice, it's able to bring you from, let's say, like 180 by 180 or 300 by 180 or something. There we go. That's good enough. The solids are good enough to bring you from kind of a low orbit. And so now I've got a pretty low periapsis, very low. It's in the atmosphere. And so now I'm just saving in case this isn't enough, because I'd really like to not lose these guys. Okay, decouple. And now turn this RCS on, because that's the only thing capable of having us hold orientation. Whoa. Don't want to specifically hold any specific orientation. And activate engine. And so these solids should be plenty to deorbit us. Basically, we want to make that a negative number, and that's really all that matters. Yep. All right. And we're coming in at much faster than like a low Earth orbit. Because we injected ourselves so high here, we're going to gain a lot of speed on the way down. Ooh. I'm going to have to use a lifting reentry, because this is going to be a really deep bite into the atmosphere. The Gemini is just barely and nearly lunar rated, which means it can re-enter from the speed you would come back from the moon at. But usually with that, if I'm returning the Gemini from a moon, or when I was testing and configuring the Gemini to have that rating for realism overhaul, I was much more careful about what these orbital parameters were. But right now we're moving much slower. So we'll see a final sunrise here before we come down in the Pacific Ocean. Actually, before we do that, I should just make sure, I should just look where we're actually coming down. Yep. Yeah, pretty ideal area. That's awesome. So we'll get to see this final sunrise from orbit. Nearly 14 days in space, but for the duration record, it counted as more than 7 and less than 14. Who needs? Yeah, big string of, I don't know, it's just really neat how the continents and everything look so much different from just a bit higher. There's a string between Asia and Australia. You can just see so much more territory from higher up. So right now it really doesn't matter what orientation the capsule is in until we really come down towards the atmosphere, and now we're getting there. We're falling pretty fast, so I'm going to need to use a lifting re-entry, because if we, let's point it the other way, because if we let it fall into the atmosphere at this speed, it's going to really bite down into the thicker part of the atmosphere before it has a chance to slow down, because we're kind of on such a downward arc. And so instead we're going to use the re-entry mode, as the Gemini was capable of producing some lift by having an off-center center of mass. It just wasn't obviously triggerable in a way like a button like this, but that's kind of the best way to simulate it for realism overhaul, to have the center of mass centered for ascent to orbit. Although you could even experiment with just descent mode on all the time. I just haven't done that in a long time. Sometimes the engines are fidgety about gimbaling, because if the center of mass of part of your payload is off-center, that makes it a bit more difficult to launch to orbit. Because it kind of wants to always pull to the side that's heavier. And that effect becomes more and more pronounced as the craft loses weight, as it moves up. Okay, so we're kind of in retrograde position now. Basically, heat shield pointed towards the dangerous area. And I don't usually trigger descent mode until the atmosphere actually starts to bite a bit. Because in practice, a lot of vehicles like this just aren't terribly stable in thin air. Okay, we're falling pretty fast. It's decreasing just because of kind of the shape of the orbit, but still falling faster than you usually do. And you can see, like I said earlier, the energy coming from such a high altitude is translated into speed now. So we're going through a more dangerous re-entry than a Gemini normally would from low Earth orbit. And a Mercury in practice would probably have trouble re-entering with this much speed, this much energy. But a Gemini was made to be more resilient than Mercury. And we in the realism overhaul group like to go with the line of Gemini thinking that Gemini could have potentially done lunar missions. So we made it just barely lunar rated, because that was kind of part of the design consideration. It's a long story and there's lots that goes into it, but it's fun to do missions with Lunar Gemini basically. Okay, so we're really starting to bite into the atmosphere now, so let's turn on descent mode, and so that's going to cause the center of mass to shift, which is going to cause us to tip a bit like this. And so part of the force that is slowing us down is also going to be, one part is going to slow us down, another fraction of that force, because of this angle, is going to produce some lifting action. So that's going to cause this to decrease, hopefully. Ooh, biting the atmosphere very hard. Very, very hard. Not as much lifting as I was hoping for at all. Looks like it might actually kill the crew. Well, that is no good at all. 18 Gs. Yeah, I think that's. I think they very well may be done for. That would certainly injure them. So in future or in retrospect, that's weird. I would have expected that to kill them. It hit very high Gs, albeit for a fairly short period of time, and also that would have been pretty hard on the heat shield. Although because it's a lunar or very nearly lunar rated heat shield, it can survive that type of thing. But the crew, I figure should have died in that. I'll have to look into that. I don't see a deadly re-entry symbol. No, is that the? No, I thought. I'll have to check if I have deadly reentry installed, because I should. It's kind of part of one of the recommended or required. Oh, there we go. Deadly reentry. Crew G max. Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I'll have to kind of direct Nathan Kell or other Realism Overhaul guys to check this out, because I would have expected to at least get a warning about the crew having trouble with that reentry. And I would have expected hitting that high of G-force for more than a couple of seconds would have incapacitated or killed the crew. But anyway, thankfully, I'm not going to complain about them not dying. Alright, so we are slowed down very substantially, so let's deactivate descent mode. And we're not quite below the speed of sound, so we're not going to pop the parachute and everything yet. But yeah, as you can see, so if you've ever flown the Apollo or watched somebody fly the Apollo hardware in Realism Overhaul, the Gemini does have a re-entry mode, but it doesn't produce nearly as much lift as the Apollo does. So you want to keep that in mind when you're, say, if you try to do a mission to the moon, or even a mission for medium Earth orbit like I did, you definitely don't want it to be as deep as I just made it. Okay, so let's pop that, and then arm. I need to check if arming the parachutes is the default, because I always love that, having it set as just arming, so that I've told the parachutes that they're okay to fire when it's the right time for them to fire, and then I don't have to worry about it. But you can still do that through the right-click menu, even if you haven't told real shoots specifically to do that. But now I've got them both active. There we go. And so the drogue has fully fired. We've slowed down a lot, but not slow enough that we would survive hitting the water. And there we go. There's the pretty water effects caused by scatterer. And then pretty soon we should lose the drogue and the mains should pop. Perfect. Perfect timing. There we go. And then we'll slow down for final descent to a water landing in the Pacific. So where are we? Where is Hawaii? I don't know. It's too cloudy. It is too cloudy for me to see Hawaii. Oh, there it is. There it is. Not terribly far from Hawaii. Well, maybe 1,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers. It is hard to tell because the Pacific Ocean is huge. But yeah, so we have successfully brought our Gemini astronauts back from a successful rendezvous and docking. New duration record of greater than 7 days. All kinds of new records. It was a very successful mission. Unfortunately, realistically, I should probably retire them both for the physical damage they would have suffered from that really rough re-entry. Beyond that, it was a really good mission, I find. Other than that, it took me a very long time to dock. Sorry if you watched all of that, but who knows? Maybe other people enjoy docking as much as I do. Okay. Yeah, so kind of the things you enjoy in the game should probably direct you towards what types of missions you carry out in Realism Overhaul and RP-0. If you like building like insanely large rockets, build insanely large rockets. If you like building ridiculously small rockets and like doing tons of on-orbit construction, go hard. If you like space stations, etc., do whatever you find interesting. And I like to do on-orbital construction and docking. So I try to think of ways to integrate that into my missions. And sending something to Mars, like unless you've got like an absolutely ridiculous rocket, you're gonna need to send multiple payloads to Earth orbit in order to send people to Mars and get them home safely. So thank you for watching RP-0 America. Goodbye.